So we will continue with the book of Hebrews, and we are going to look at chapter 12 today, Hebrews 12, and we finished Hebrews 11 last week, which is a very famous passage, the Hall of Faith, and remember this, the heart of the Hall of Faith. How many of you guys have heard Hebrews 11? Like, he had faith. Jacob had faith. Isaac had faith. You know that passage where it's like they had faith and explains. And there's a reason why that's there. Okay, and that is an illustration. That chapter, the chapter that we looked at for the last 2 weeks, Hebrews 11, is essentially an illustration to show that it is possible to endure just through faith, to have faith. And remember, we talked about what it means to have faith. It's not general faith. If I say, just I think it's a lot of times we overuse that word faith. Like we'll just have faith. Like you're having a hard time. We'll just have faith in what? In what? And the reason why I'm very specific about it is because I've seen a lot of people get hurt, church hurt. Of using, you have to have faith in God, just general. And a situation happens and it doesn't go their way, and they're like, "Hey, I had faith," right? And the implication is when you say have faith, when I say in what, it means in what promise. There's a who, there's a person, right? There's a person that you trust or you don't trust. You think they have the ability to follow through on something they don't. And that person has promised you something, you in particular or a group, right? So when we say have faith in God, the context here is chapter 10, verse 39, which is in reference to the promises through Jesus Christ, right? You have to have faith in the promises of the access that Christ has given us that we didn't have before, right? So remember, the heart of it is Christ is better than angels, right? Then Moses, then the Levitical priesthood, the Melchizedek priesthood is better, and the sacrificial system, right? And as a result, he says this is where the cross of Jesus Christ, that's a central focus, and that the heart of it, the promise is that we have the presence of God, we have Eden, okay, and that's the very essence of life, okay. That's the promise, and the person is God. Okay, remember that. When you have faith, it's always a person. Can they do it? Can they not? Right? And a promise that person has given you. So, how many of us have desires in life? You have this. You want to go here. You want to do this. And how many times in our desires, they could be good things, we've put God's name in there. But in the imperative, it's a definite thing, he's going to do it, right? Versus he might not, right? But sometimes we'll be like, he's going to do it. He's going to heal so and so. He's going to give me, right? He'll get me out of this situation. And what happens if this person dies? What happens if you don't get to that situation, right? We get disappointed. But my point when I say in what is, was that promised to you with 100% certainty? You see that? Was the person we were praying for, the healing, did God promise us the healing of this individual? Did God promise specifically the embetterment, the success of your situation, whatever that may be? He didn't, right? And that's what I'm saying. Like, what specifically has God promised? A lot of times we'll have faith, but in things He's never promised us, and it doesn't happen. And guess what happens? Hope deferred makes the heart sick. Church hurt, all that stuff. People get disillusioned by Christianity. It wasn't God. It was the false promises that really came from people, the church, pastors, bad interpretations of the Bible, right? So that's I'm very specific. Like what? So Hebrews 11 essentially is about endurance. Okay, it's an illustration as far as it is possible to have faith and it's possible to endure in the midst of whatever situation you're in. The before the law was given, before there was a flood, there was always faith, right? Abel, Enoch, Noah, right? Well, Abraham, before even the promises were realized in their life, right? And most of it, remember, the heart of this life, you want to get to the very heart of it, remember I talked about Eden restored. That's the whole purpose of life, right? The whole purpose of life is fellowship, is connection with God, right? But what the fall did is that it made us exiled, outsiders. And you want to be practical as far as like how you see people live. This is why people sometimes feel alienated, which is why we need fellowship. This is why some people feel excluded, abandoned, right? It's an emotional hell in the soul. And like, why do we experience? Because it's unnatural. You weren't made for that. You see that? And the heart of what Jesus is, he's supposed to bring you back to that. And it exists experientially. It might not happen here because we meet together because we need community, right? We need encouragement. But the heart of that is, remember, of what he's trying to say is, he wants you to endure. Okay? So, this chapter, Hebrews 12, is almost now speaking to us, to the people, the Jewish Christians at the time. So, he goes through this illustration of the amount of saints, and then now he speaks to the Jewish Christians, and this passage could be applied to us too. Okay? So, the heart of it is to endure. Can someone read chapter 12, verse 1 to 3? Chapter 12, verse 1 to 3.
Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip of every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up. And let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. We do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith. Because of the joy awaiting him, he endured the cross, disregarding its shame. Now he is seated in the place of honor beside God's throne. Think of all the hostility he endured from sinful people. Then you won't become weary and give up.
All right. So, therefore, okay, it's a continued merit. There is no chapter division. It's supposed to go straight through. So this continues. Therefore, since we are surrounded by what? A great cloud of witnesses. Who is he referring to? What's the great cloud of witnesses?
The followers of God.
Of chapter 11. Abel, Enoch, all the people, even Abraham, Moses, Samson, right?
David,
Jephthah,
Samuel.
David, all the people, that's who he's referring to. Remember, there's no chapter division. It goes straight through. Okay? And that's the great cloud. Let us lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. So it's now an exhortation and encouragement for the audience. Remember, the audience of the book of Hebrews, who he's writing to, they're tempted to fall away. That's a temptation. They're very discouraged, and they want to go back into Jewish customs. Okay, and what he's saying is like, hey, keep going, persevere, just like these guys did too. Okay, just like these guys. And he's saying, lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely. What do you think he's referring to? Every weight. Obviously, this is the context is Greco-Roman athletic competition, which was big around this time, first century, right? So if you're a runner, you train, right? And remember, this is not. People knew this would not be a sprint. This would be a marathon, which life is, right? But laying aside every weight. This is things that slow us down practically. I think individually, all of us, as you grow up, you experience things. There's things that maybe your heart might find amusing, right? And you know it's not right. And we feed it, we starve it, we feed it, we starve it. And obviously with whatever that thing is, it hinders our race, our marathon, right? And what he's saying is get rid of that. Again, this is very similar. Remember when Jesus says, if there's a body part that's causing you to sin, cut it off, right? Essentially, cut off any form of distraction. Okay, so faith is not passive belief. It is sustained through endurance focused on Christ. Okay, so remember, the heart of chapter 11 is to show it is possible. It is possible. It's not theory. It's not just a hypothetical that, hey, people did this. It's possible for you. You should do this. No. He's saying you should do this because other people have too. It's real. It's real. Okay, that's the very heart of this passage here. Now compare the endurance to a sprint. I kind of think of Matthew chapter 13. I don't know if you remember Matthew 13, the parable of the sower, where throws one seed in. The seed represents the message of the gospel, and then you have the ground that represents human souls, hearts. We all have different hearts. Just go to the mall. Just go around. You'll talk to people. We there's our personality, there's our physical makeup, but there's our heart, the state of our heart. Some people right away deny the faith. That's where the Satan comes and he snatches it away. And then some people, they experience the gospel and right away Jesus is Lord, right? And then you don't hear about them 2 months after that, right? Some situation happened or didn't go their way, and that's represented to the one that the seed that fell in the rocky ground, and then the vine spread up so quickly, right? And it fell right away. And that is kind of what's in reference to here, as far as people who they don't endure. They're I'm a Christian like right away, and then next thing you know, they're just gone, right? And this would be I would say a concern for anyone that's on social media, an influencer. You see people who they were a Muslim or and all of a sudden they come to Christ, and it's great. We praise God for it, but a week, a month isn't long enough to know if that is real in your heart. How do you know? You might be just saying things, right? It's the bandwagon fan. I'm a Warrior fan, right? Or I'm a whoever's on top, right? That's like the second. But the last soil, I'm just going to skip to the last one, is the one that bears fruit. Is there to the end. Right? So I say that because the social media generation, man, people are fast. Whatever they find exciting, they will. You'll hear it from them, right? Fine, but at the end of we have to apply wisdom, and we have to ask, how do you know? How do you know? And the whole point of this is, hey, there have been people who've endured, right? Life situations, not I've heard of Jesus, and I'm going to say it right away. They've endured real life situations. Okay, and then at the end of the day, their heart maintains faith in Jesus, and that's what he's referring to here. So he's kind of encouraging his audience to endure, right? Remember in Revelation 3, the church of Sardis, where Jesus says, "You appear alive, but you're really dead." You appear alive, but you're really dead. It doesn't matter how your appearance, right? What's inside, right? What's inside? Are you alive inside? And at the end of the day, it's time. It's time in life that's going to show. How do you know someone's profession is true? I don't know. But one thing that's going to test it is time and circumstances, the good or the bad. That's all, right? But in the midst of that, he encourages his readers in the first 3 verses to continue. 1 Corinthians 9:24-27, Paul says, "Do you not know that that in a race all runners run, but only one receives a prize? So run that you may obtain it. Every athlete exercises self-control in all things. They do it to receive a perishable wreath, but we an imperishable. So I do not run aimlessly. I do not box as one beating the air, but I discipline my body and yet keep it under control, lest after preaching to others, I myself should be disqualified." Okay, let's continue. Can someone read verse 4 to 11? chapter 12, verse 4 to 11.
In your struggles against sin, you have not yet resisted to the point of shedding your blood. And you have forgotten that word of encouragement that addresses you as sons. My sons, do not make light of the Lord's discipline, and do not lose heart when he rebukes you, because the Lord disciplines those he loves. He punishes everyone he accepts as a son. Endure hardships as discipline. God is treating you as sons. For what sons is not disciplined by his father? If you are not disciplined, and everyone undergoes discipline, then you are illegitimate children and are not true sons. Moreover, we have all had human fathers who disciplined us, and we respected them for it. How much more should we submit to the Father our spirits and live? The Father of our spirits and live. Our fathers discipline us for a little while when they thought best, but God disciplines us for our good, that he may share his holiness. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. There's just one verse left. Do you want that one too?
Is it to 11?
12 is the last one.
Sure.
Therefore struggle your feeble arms and weak knees. Make level the path for your feet, so that the lame may not be disabled, but rather healed.
Okay. So, discipline as a mark of sonship. Okay. Verse 4 to 6, it says, in your struggle against sin, you have not resisted to the point of shedding your blood. So essentially what he's saying here, verse 4, in your struggle against sin, you have not yet resisted to the point of shedding your blood. To the audience in Hebrews, they've never been persecuted to the point of death. Their own personal blood has not been shed, like Jesus, like some of the people that he mentioned, some of the apostles. So he's like, hey, you haven't been through that. It's not that bad. It's not that bad as far as like what you've been through. Okay, but continues, verse 5, and you have forgotten the exhortation that addresses you as sons. There's an exhortation, you as sons. And here he quotes Proverbs chapter 3, verse 11 to 12. My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord, nor be weary when reproved by him. For the Lord disciplines the one he loves, and chastens every son whom he receives. So here, don't read God's discipline. Don't misread it. What I mean by that is, again, he quotes Proverbs chapter 3 here, but the reason why he's quoting it is that even in Proverbs chapter 3, is that we have the essence of discipline, that this is a fatherly interaction, pain doesn't mean it's ill-willed. Pain does not mean it's ill-willed here, or it's not random hardship, but there's an intent from a father. Okay, so essentially, if there's some sense of pain from the father, discipline, consider it a good thing, right? Don't consider it a bad thing. Don't misread it. It's good. So just general, discipline is not abandonment. Discipline means you're accepted, you're belonged. Okay, it might be very difficult to but what's the heart of discipline? It's for the betterment of a person, right? So again, don't misread God's discipline. Verse 7 to 8 says, it is for discipline that you have endured. God is treating you as sons. For what son is there whom his father does not discipline? If you are left without discipline, in which all have participated, then you are illegitimate children and not sons. Okay, so discipline here confirms sonship. That's really it for verse 7 and 8. Discipline confirms sonship. If you are not disciplined, then what does he say? You're illegitimate. Okay? If you're at a park and say there's a dad and his son has a friend, and both kids act up, right? The father will most likely discipline his son, right? He'll be tempted to discipline his friend too, but he won't because that's not his son. You see? So that lack of discipline that this father did not give to the boy, that's to the friend, again, that just shows the legitimacy, the consistency of this passage, meaning that a father disciplines only his son, right? The fact that the father did not discipline the other son, again, he's illegitimate. That's not his real son. You see? So that's the whole point here, is that if you are a child of God and you have not been disciplined, it shows you might not be a child of God, right? God, the Father, is all about holiness. He's all about personal refinement. Now, it's, do you ever live life and you see someone, your friends, some of your friends, and it's like they go through nothing, and you know that, you know that, like you've compared some of the things you've been through, some of your friends have been through, and you have a friend, or it's like, have they been through anything like that? It's just like they just go through life, and it's like nothing bothers them, or and you wonder, it's like that creates kind of an envy in you, being like, God, why couldn't my life be that easy and breezy, right? Versus like what rejection or all the things that life brings, right? Now, in that case, if that person has not been disciplined, right, there's no need to envy, right? There is no need to envy, because what this passage is suggesting is they're not really a legitimate child of God, because God's children become disciplined. Remember, not everyone is God's child. This world we are children of the devil. That's what Paul says, 2 Corinthians 4:4, right? It's that through Jesus Christ we become sons and daughters of God, right? We become adopted, right? But now in that process, if we're truly His, discipline will come. Not punishment, big difference, discipline.
Testing is what they'll be doing too.
Testing, refinement of the human soul. And I know I'm saying this on the spot, but it's almost like only or the people around you that know you close, could see the fruit that comes from the discipline, right? How many of you guys have been in a state of discipline or like a very difficult season, and you're like, why am I in this season, right? But
This is happening to me.
as time goes by, you kind of look back and you're like, wow, I'm kind of glad that happened to me, because it made you a different person. And not just different, but better, right? Had it not been for that, whatever situation, right? The reason why I'm careful to say whatever that is because sometimes I'm speaking practically here. Sometimes it's hard to distinguish, is this God's discipline or is this just life? Right? Do we not feel the same way? Like, is this God's discipline? And it's hard. It's hard to say this is the, or is it just this life, right? But I'll say, if it's God's discipline, there's a refinement versus just random rejection, random hardship. And I think that happens in life. I do think that sometimes people just get random, hardships in life. But I think God's is disciplinary. It leads to holiness. It leads to you being like, I want to know God, versus what these guys are going through, which is I want nothing to do with God. Right? So remember, hardship is not abandonment. Hardship is belonging. Okay? Any questions? So remember, God's discipline is proof that you are His child. Here he quotes Proverbs 3:11-12. Also, Proverbs 13:24 says, "Whoever spares the rod hates his son." Right? Whoever spares the rod hates his son. There's a lot of talk, and I think in the U.S. about like how you discipline your children. Right? Soft discipline, they're calling it. Right? If a parent disciplines their child, people get phones out and they start, oh, look, they're abusing, right? Their own child, right? But again, he hates his son. But he who loves him is diligent to discipline him. One more, Proverbs 19:18, discipline your son, for there is hope. Okay, for there is hope. Verse 9 and 10 says, besides this, we have earthly fathers who discipline us, right? And we respected them. Shall we not much more be subject to the Father of spirits and live? For they disciplined us for a short time, as has been seen best to them. But he disciplines us, God, for our good, that we may share what? His holiness. That's the essence of God's discipline. That we may share him. How Jesus is. Okay? So, God's discipline is superior than whose? Than earthly people. Earthly, that's what he contrasts from verse 9 and 10, is that he compares the discipline of an earthly father in comparison to your heavenly Father. And the whole point of comparing your earthly father is that it's not perfect, right? It doesn't always lead to the best thing. The incentive, the heart could, a father could discipline their child and want the best, but it might not lead to it, right? Well, is it possible for a Christian dad, to believe in Christ, discipline their son, but sometimes they're a little too soft, right? They don't discipline their child enough. And the child becomes very rebellious when they get their way, right? Or sometimes the parent, the father, because we're talking about fathers here, when the father disciplines their child, it's too much, right? And when it's too much, what do we call that?
Torment.
Abuse. Torment, right? But there is that fine line when a parent says, I'm going to discipline my child, but the discipline is actual abuse, right? And again, the whole point of does this happen? A father is too light, right? Too lenient or too hard, and it affects the child in a negative way, right? Whatever it is, there's an imperfection when it comes to an earthly father. Okay, like I think there's so many books on this subject, a father's discipline or their attentiveness to a child. And I think literally all of us in this room can relate because we're all human and we all have fathers, the fact that we're here. But I think that your dad's interaction with you as a child really shaped a lot of your personality growing up. Your attachment, they call it attachment theory. Have you guys heard of that, attachment theory? Like how you interact with acceptance, rejection, with people. Your interaction they call it attachment theory, right? How a person responds in everyday situations based upon the relationship with your father, right? But the whole point of it is it's not perfect, right? A lot of people, their dad might have meant well. That was their heart, but they had their own issues that they didn't know about. And guess what pain does, right? It's passed down. Hurt people, what? Hurt people. Pain is passed down. And then all of a sudden now it's on you. And then we develop a thought, but it's always good to keep in mind is earthly fathers, they're not perfect. They're not perfect, right? So, Danny?
Is that where it comes from, the sins of our fathers? We pay for the sins of our fathers?
No. I wouldn't bring attachment theory into that. This is just, I'm being very practical. This has been proven, attachment theory, the parents, the father's relationship to their child and the way they handle them, the affection or the lack of affection, right? So that's what's passed down, really.
Well, I know, but abuse is passed down too, or negativity towards your kid. And when your father's a kid, and that's the way he was raised, he didn't know any difference, and he does the same thing to his son or his daughter. That's what I'm asking.
Yes.
When Scripture talks about the sins, we pay for the sins of our father. Yeah. That's what I'm asking.
Yes. That's it. Yeah. So, but God's discipline, it leads to holiness. That's the heart of it. God's discipline will lead to holiness. If you've experienced a season in your life where, man, it was rough, But you became more like Christ, and this is not knowledge. This is like real life. You know it from your heart, the way you interact with people, the way you talk to yourself. That's the discipline of God. That's what it does. That's the heart of it. It brings you to a state of holiness. Holiness is just you're more Christ-like in your conduct and how you are. Okay. So God's discipline is perfectly wise and aimed for our ultimate good. Okay. Also, verse 11. Verse 11 says, "For the moment, all discipline seems painful, rather pleasant, but later it yields peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it." So essentially, discipline produces long-term fruit. Discipline is painful now, but fruitful later. Through time, what does it bring? Patience. Again, this is the fruit that I was referring to. How do you know? How do you know what is of God? Is it, or does it bring fruit in your life? Now, fruit is not instantaneous; it's going to happen through time. But again, you know it from your current reality, right? As far as what kind of fruit it brings. Okay, but you ever see someone that you're like, man, this person lacks patience, this person lacks peace, and it's like, I think they need a bit of God's discipline, a little bit of God's discipline. Really, like that's one of the only antidotes to it is someone going through it, and then them learning, and then time goes by, and you come around, and you're like, wow, they're different. God's discipline works, right? God's discipline works. So, any questions?
Well, I think
Was that Kevin?
I think um, I think God has the more um, it's hard to say, but he's the initiator of it. Like it's not like I feel like he's not just like there like looking, observing,
Yeah.
and then responding based on like, oh, you know, what he knows. It's like, oh, he's going to do this now, but it's like he's already decreed it like before time. So it's like he is active, but it's he's already like initiated it. I don't know how to explain it, but he I mean, he's the one who's doing most of the work, basically. We have a part in it, but it's like he's the initiator, and he's doing the heavy lifting. He's just leading us, you know, like the good shepherd.
Yeah.
But
Well,
like,
that's what he is. He's the shepherd. Like, you ever Psalm 23? What does it say? Your rod and your what? Staff, they comfort me. Right. So even there, Kevin, that's a psalm of David, who was a shepherd. Right. Your rod, your staff, they comfort me. So in the context of a shepherd would have that stick, right? They would walk around with, and then there's your rod. The rod was the tip part, right? That hook, that top part, and a shepherd would scoop the neck of a sheep, and like if there's 99 straight, and there's one that's always going around, get it by the neck and bring it back, and right, and that's it, right? But then there's that sheep that it's the same one that just keeps going out of that one sheep. It just keeps so. He gets the rod, brings it back in again. Leaves again, gets the rod, brings it back in. And it's the shepherd is left to the point. This one sheep will not listen. This one sheep will not listen. So the rod, right, turns into the staff. Turns it upside down. The staff is the bottom part, right? And then they whack, right? And they hit the sheep's legs, breaks. Sometimes it gets broken to the point the shepherd has to carry the sheep over it, right, over his back. But the whole point of the staff was for discipline's sake, was for discipline's sake. And sometimes the sheep would limp, right? Would limp. And some people remember Jacob's limp when he wrestled the angel of the Lord? He wrestled God and then he walked away with a limp. And most people believe he had a limp for the rest of his life because he was very stubborn. A stubborn sheep. Look the way Jacob was born. He was born holding on to his brother's heel, right? And that personality, that state of his soul didn't change. He was always stubborn, right? He was born holding on to his brother's heel, right? So he always held on. And then he held on to what? The birthright, right, from his brother. The whole, him having, he made this nice pot of stew, and his brother's like hunting, and he's like, he wanted it, and he held on to it, and he tricked his brother, and then what? Then he wanted a blessing, so he wore, hair on his hands to act like he's all, macho, and tricked his dad. Held on to blessing, right? And then now he runs away, and he's with Laban, his new father-in-law, and what? He falls in love with Rachel, right? 14 years, not 7. Remember, it was 7 years he worked for Rachel. This is what love does, right? But all of a sudden, after 7 years, he's like, oh, I'm married to her, right? He wakes up, he's like, who's this? Right? It's Leah. But then Laban's like, oh, you got to work for Rachel. Another 14 years.
Wow.
What's that? He's holding on. Most guys would be like, oh, that's it. My back.
Somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. I'll find another father-in-law.
I don't think most would have gone for 7 years.
Yeah, but 14. But again, this holding on, and then so that's 4 holding ons, and then the 5th holding on was what? The angel of the Lord. All of a sudden he's nervous. He's about to meet his brother Esau, right? He's like scared. He's like, oh no, and some random guy just wrestles him to the ground, and it's God. And what does he do? Holds on. He says, I'm not going to let go until what? Right? What is who are you? What is your name? Right? And that was a moment he went from Jacob to Israel. And that's where this happened. He learned to let go. And he walked away with what? A limp. And what does that show? The discipline of God. The discipline of God. He was changed. You notice that Jacob or Israel, no, he's just old. As far as he's not, the focus is no longer on him as much anymore after that, right? Because it's showing you the stubborn patterns that we all have, right? We want it our way, and what does God do? There's the rod, and there's what? There's the staff. He takes the staff out, and sometimes we have to walk away with a limp. Yeah, it might take us 5 years, 10 years, 20 years to get out of one issue, and that's not God. That's us. But God was trying to work with us. For our own holiness, right? So think of it as a wild animal, right? That's versus a tamed animal. Like it's like we're all wild animals. It's just what the discipline of God does is it tames us. Wild animals are impulsive. They feel they want. They feel they want. They see they want, right? People are impulsive. Just look at your phone. Right? People just act on their impulses. But without discipline, without some justice system, people continue in that state. That's the heart of discipline, right? Accountability is for us to be tamed, to live in society, right? And that's the heart of what God does is that he almost disciplines us to the point that we are in that state of holiness, okay? Any questions? No? All right. Verse 12 to 17, can someone read? Verse 12 to 17.
I think we read 12 and 13 already.
Do we?
Yeah. She
What
read
chapter?
to the end.
14 through 17, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Make every effort to live in peace with everyone and to be holy. Without holiness, no one will see the Lord. See to it that no one falls short of grace of God, and that no bitter root grows up to cause trouble and defile many. See that no one is sexually immoral or is godless like Esau, who for a single meal sold his inheritance rights as the oldest son. Afterward, As you know, when he wanted to inherit his blessing, he was rejected. Even though he sought the blessing with tears, he could not change what he had done.
So this is a call here to perseverance, okay? A call to perseverance and holiness. But I know we didn't read, we started at 14, but look at verse 12. Therefore lift up your drooping hands and strengthen your weakened knees, okay? And make straight paths for your feet, that what is lame may not be out of joint, but rather be healed. This is, what does this sound like to you in verse 12? Therefore lift up your what? Drooping hands and strengthen your weakened knees. What does that sound like?
Someone that's sedentary.
Say that again, Kevin.
Someone that's sedentary.
Okay.
To be strong.
What's that?
To be strong.
Like that's the solution to this. Okay. When I read this, lift up your drooping hands and strengthen your weak. I think of a boxer. I think of like round 12. Like this guy is his hand. So I don't know if you know. You ever known boxing? I don't know if you know you ever know what the speed bag's about? That's that little ball that drop. Like it looks like a raindrop, and then guys just hit it. You ever know? You know why people do that? No.
For the rhythm.
I have no idea.
Rhythm.
You're not punching. There's no power in it, right? It's you're just hitting it. You're just tapping it. But why? Yeah. What practicality does that have in the sport of boxing or MMA? And I'll tell you what, the heart of it. So when you train in boxing, that's the last exercise you do. The last. So you could spar, you could hit the heavy bag, you hit the double end bag, you could work lift weights. But the last exercise in boxing, and if you train, is the speed bag. Okay, the last. Okay? And the reason why it's the last is because in boxing, when you get tired, what do? You lower your hands. And you're exposed. This is your weak spot if you didn't know. Just right. So when people get tired, they do this. They lower their hands. So in boxing, the reason why that's the last, because you're already tired when you go to with the speed bag, and the heart of it is to keep your hands up. You're moving, but this is to keep your hands up. That's it. That's the heart of the speed bag. It's just to do this. So like the equivalent, if I train someone, I'll just 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and they're burning. They're screaming. They're literally screaming. It's because their hands they're already tired, and they're tempted to do this, to drop their hands. Yeah, that's the heart of it. But when I read this passage, what does it say? It says, lift up your drooping hands. This guy,
Tired.
You're getting tired. Yeah, you're getting tired. And doesn't life do that to us? Yeah, it makes us we start lowering our hands, right? And the whole point of it is keep your hands up, keep going, endure, perseverance, right? Your weakened knees, right? Right?
Well, especially for guys hitting you in the body too.
Yeah. So again, that's just what we do. We get tired. We lower our hands. But watch for spiritual danger. Okay, watch out for spiritual danger. Verse 15 and 17 is with me. Look at 14. Strive for peace with everyone and for holiness, without which no one will see the Lord. And then he says, see to it that no one fails to obtain the grace of God. Okay, so these are watch out. Okay, continue to persevere, but watch out. And he says, see that no one fails to obtain the grace of God, that no what? Root of bitterness springs up and causes trouble, and by it many become defiled. Then no one is sexually immoral or unholy like Esau, who sold his birthright for a single meal. She talked about that earlier. For you know that afterward, when he desired to inherit the blessing, He was rejected, for he found no chance to repent, though he sought it with tears. Okay, so he says, watch out for what? A root of bitterness, for falling short of grace, sexual morality. So see to it that no one fails to obtain the grace of God, that no root of bitterness springs up or causes trouble. Okay, now he says the root of bitterness. This comes from the book of Deuteronomy, the passage that he's quoting. But the root of bitterness. Notice how the way he words it is what? It's a root. What is a root? It's something that goes deep. Okay, it's something that goes deep into the ground, and then there's a vine, and then there's branches, and then there's a specific fruit. Okay, a particular fruit that comes with it. But the heart of what he's saying here. Do you water, Trish?
No, I'm okay. I just,
Yeah, that's
it's
okay.
hereditary. I sneeze out
I'm
six or seven times.
I'm the
so-
same way. One sneeze, 10 is next.
Oh, well, that's
One
fine, so-
sneeze, get ready.
Yeah.
And like the.
Yeah,
I just. But a root, the whole heart of it here. Why he's bringing up is that, remember, the heart of it is apostasy, when people fall away. Contamination doesn't happen just externally. It always starts deep within someone. For a group to be contaminated, it takes a person to be contaminated. And for a person to be contaminated, it doesn't just happen. It happens where? Inside their soul. A root. There's a root that's starting to spread inside of them. Bitterness is a state that someone's in. It's frustration. It's a state that someone's in. If it's inside of them, they can put on the nicest face and be all polite, but there will be moments where that contamination comes out. It will come out. What's inside of you will come out of you, right? And what it does, the whole point of it, it contaminates and it will bring you away. Because remember, that's the context of this: is don't fall away. We need you to endure, like the people of chapter 11. Okay, but what is just practical bitterness? Oh, you lose your mind when you're in a state of bitterness. It's just negativity central, right? What comes out of a person? You know, these are things you got to be honest with yourself when it comes to politics, when it comes to everyday practical matters. But when someone's, say, driving and they have a road rage issue, bang, it comes out of their mouth, just right over here. Whoa, where'd that come from? That didn't happen just because of the driver, or someone cut them off, or someone said that they're number one with a different finger, right? The heart of it, the reason why it came out of that person, because it was inside of them to begin with. I'm not just talking about like a word or some. I'm talking about like you know it comes out, right? That person has not been healed, right? And if that person continues in that state, it's almost like a losing battle, right? If inconsistency with a state of a root of bitterness is what he's saying, right? So the heart of it is apostasy, is what happens next. You know, a lot of people who are church hurt. It's bitterness. They'll say, "Oh, I don't believe in God. I don't believe in Jesus," and they'll give you their logical reasons. This person's just been hurt. It's bitterness. It's the root of they've been corrupted inside. Can that person can they acknowledge the pain or the excuse after another? And that's why people persist in that, right? The reason why he brings up Esau here and sexual morality is not necessarily sexual morality in of itself, that no one is sexually immoral or unholy like Esau, who sold his birthright for a single meal. The reason why he brings this up here is because sexual morality, Esau, it's impulsive nature. Okay, Esau, he was too impulsive, right? Being impulsive, not disciplined, we become people that follow our own desires, right? We want this, we do that. We don't want to follow God today, we don't follow God today. You know, that's how Esau was. Okay, so apostasy is falling away from the faith, Kevin. Yeah, it's falling away from the faith. Danny?
Yeah, why is it put on 15? Look after each other so that none of you fails to receive the grace of God. Why is that stated that way?
Because it's communal. That's why when I spoke about bitterness, it wasn't individual, it was corporate. Right? We're all, this is a communal effort, right? Hebrews 11, community, right? Looking down upon a community, not individual, community, right? If one member is impulsive, it affects everyone else. If one person is contaminated with bitterness, it affects everyone else. It's communal. Yeah. So.
Okay, I just wonder why it says that receive the grace of God. None of you fails to receive the grace of God. I mean, why is it put in that way is what I'm asking.
Oh, got you.
Why did they say the grace of God? I mean, God's grace is all, you mean being aware of God's grace? Is that what that means?
Yeah. Like this is
okay.
To live in alignment with God in that state of faith is that's grace. I miss out on that if I'm not. If I'm in that state of bitterness, I'm missing out on the grace of God.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go to verse 18 to 24. 18 to 24.
You have not come to a mountain that can be touched and that is burning with fire, to darkness, gloom, and storm, to a trumpet blast, or to such a voice speaking words that those who heard it begged that no further word be spoken to them, because they could not hear what was commanded. If even an animal touches the mountain, it must be stoned to death. The sight was so terrifying that Moses said, I am trembling with fear. But you have come to Mount Zion, to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem. You have come to thousands upon thousands of angels in joyful assembly, to the church of the firstborn, whose names are written in heaven. You have come to God, the judge of all, to the spirits of righteousness made perfect, to Jesus, the mediator of a new covenant, and to the sprinkled blood that speaks a better word than the blood of Abel.
Okay. So this is a contrast of two mountains. I don't know if you picked it up. Did you guys notice anything? There were two mountains. Okay, look at verse 18 to 21. For you have not come to what may be touched. What? Listen to this. A blazing fire, and darkness, and gloom, and a tempest. And the sound of a trumpet and a voice whose words made the hearers beg that no further message be spoken to them. For they could not endure the order which was given. Even if a beast touches the mountain, it shall be stoned. Okay? Indeed, so terrifying was the sight that Moses said, I tremble with fear. What's this referring to? Blazing fire, darkness, gloom, and a tempest. Doesn't say it, but it's referring to something.
80s.
So, look at 22. Look at verse 22. But you have come to Mount Zion. So he identifies the second mountain. You see that? So he's contrasting two mountains here. So the first mountain is from verse 18 to 21. He doesn't specify what it is, but he describes it. That you may be touched, a blazing fire, darkness, and a glooming tempest. Okay, but the big part is where he brings up the part where he gives it away is where he brings up Moses. Moses says, "I tremble with fear." It's referring to Sinai, Mount Sinai. Remember Mount Sinai? There was fire. It was blazing. People were in a state of fear, right? They're walking in the wilderness, not knowing where to go, right? Walking in circles, but. This is a contrast of the old covenant. This is Mount Sinai. Verse 18 to 21. It's a description of Mount Sinai. The old covenant, fear. You're alone. That's the old covenant. And he contrasts it to the new covenant, verse 22 to 24. But you have what? Come to Mount Zion. So the first is a mountain. It's Mount Sinai. Fear and trembling. The second mountain, Mount Zion. To the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, and the innumerable angels in festal gatherings, and to the assembly of the firstborn who enthroned in heaven, and to God, the judge of all, who the spirits of righteous made perfect, and to Jesus Christ, the mediator of what? A new covenant, to the sprinkling of blood that speaks a better word than the blood of Abel. A new covenant. So he gives covenant mountain, covenant. So there's the first mountain, Sinai, and it was the old covenant, and that was one of fear, instability, right? The second mountain, Mount Zion, right? But this is a representation of the new covenant. Zion was a hill. It was a mountain in Jerusalem. It's you can see this in 2 Samuel 5. But now in the book of Hebrews, this is in reference to a heavenly mountain. It's heavenly. Okay? So this is almost like the New Jerusalem. Okay? That will be here. Okay? So, anyways, let's continue. Any questions with the two mountains, two covenants? No? Well, we are part of Mount Zion. Okay? Doesn't mean you have to be a Zionist. Okay? Just little politics. You just don't know. That word could you'd be someone's best friend or someone's enemy. Right? But Mount Zion, it's a reference to the new heavens. Okay, so non-Israel Palestine debate. Okay, it's heavenly. Okay, but a little bit of God's discipline there. It's like don't mention Zionism when you teach. Okay.
But
Kevin?
So Zion, is that after he takes away the heavens and earth, like an old garment?
Yeah. There will be a new Zion here. Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. Verse 25 to 29, can someone read? And we'll finish here.
Be careful that you do not refuse to listen to the one who is speaking. For if the people of Israel did not escape when they refused to listen to Moses, the earthly messenger, we will certainly not escape if we reject the one who speaks to us from heaven. When God spoke from Mount Sinai, his voice shook the earth, but now he makes another promise. Once again, I will shake not only the earth, but the heavens also. This means that all of creation will be shaken and removed, so that only unshakable things will remain. Since we are receiving a kingdom that is unshakable, let us be thankful and please God by worshiping him with holy fear and awe. For our God is a devouring fire.
Okay. So, verse 25, do not refuse God's voice. Do not refuse God's voice. See that no one refuses who is speaking. For if they did not escape, they will refuse him who warned them on earth, much less we escape if we reject him who warns from heaven. So this is essentially greater revelation, greater responsibility. Okay, those in the past, they had information, but not a lot. They didn't have a lot of revelation. We have way more revelation. 2,000 years ago, they had a lot of revelation. 2,000 years ago. 2,000 years ago from that, the year 2026, we got a lot. We have artificial intelligence. How about that? Okay, I can say ChatGPT, what is this? And not all right, but we are at the most technological advance we've ever been in human history. And I'm talking about information. Sometimes we have too much information, we don't know what to do with it, right? But again, greater revelation, greater responsibility, as Uncle Ben said. With great power comes what? great responsibility, right? Psst, right? But and then verse 26, 27, God will shake everything, not just on earth, but even heaven too. Okay? Verse 28, therefore let us be grateful for receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken, and thus let us offer to God acceptable worship with reverence and awe, meaning that God's kingdom will not collapse. Okay? St. Augustine, 4th century church father, says that he wrote a book called it was The Collapse of the Roman Empire, and says the heart of it is man could establish his kingdom as much as possible. We have a nature that will eventually destroy it. We'll build it, but we'll also destroy it. But there's the kingdom of God, and that will never be destroyed. Okay? That kingdom will never be destroyed. And last, he says, for God is a consuming fire, which means that God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. The kingdoms, they come and go. America comes and goes. Nations, they come and go. But God is a consuming fire. He's there today, yesterday, and forever. And he burns that which is unholy. Things that are unrighteous that stand before him will not stand a chance. Any kingdom that we put before him will not stand a chance. As Psalm 2 says, he sits in heaven, he laughs at those who's like, oh, this is my kingdom. Right? He laughs. Right? In 2020, I'm going off topic now, I'm being political. In 2020, in reference to this, in 2020, as part of a group chat, I'm going to delete this or erase this part when I post it, but I had some friends that were like, yeah, we want Donald Trump to win. Not 2024, 2020. And I remember I text them, I'm going to stop it right here.